In this video, I'm going to show you how to add a page background image and add some corresponding colors to your page to give it a very different vibe. In the last video, I did it for like a really fun, playful vibe, and then this is just going to be kind of softer and more nurturing. That's my goal. So the point of these videos is just to show you how using a couple strategic color changes and a page background image can really change how the entire page looks and feels. So now, and if you missed the last video, we started with this really plain template page. This is just a template page that I created in Kajabi to use for a home page for clients or for whoever. But it's obviously lots of white. All the call to action buttons are just black, and then I use these really neutral photos just to kind of block out the text and the photos and graphics. So we're going to, it doesn't really have personality at this point. And that's what we're going to do. Okay, so I'm going to close this. And first in Canva, I created these background images. We're going to be using this one this time. So this file is 2880 pixels by 1200 pixels. That's what it needs to be a background image. We're going to share this one. I'm just going to download it. You want to download it as a JPEG file whenever possible, not a PNG, because a PNG is just a larger file size and it could slow down your page load speed a little bit. So whenever possible, you want to use a JPEG. So in Kajabi, we're going to go over to settings and down to style guide. And I'm going to say use background image. Yes. And actually, I'll show you what happens. If we save this. Okay, so Kajabi has this this background image that it is just a default that they use on all their pages. So, and that obviously doesn't look good right there. But we're going to upload that the image that I just downloaded. So previewing it on the live page, you can see that the text is on top of that flower, so it's hard to read. So there are a couple different things that we can do to address that, which I'll show you what your options are. If you watched the other video, the graphic that I created, the page background image was, let's see, this one that really only has those graphics on the sides. So then with all the text in the middle, it was always overlaid on top of white, so it was easy to read. So we are going to, that's not going to work here. So, but we have a couple different options, and I'll show you what I would do to modify this. And I always preview it here to see exactly, how much text is going over the flower. But you can also in Kajabi, if you hit this that arrow, it'll show you like what the live page is going to look like. Okay, and then I'll pop it back out again. So one thing that we can do is put a color overlay over the entire image, so that it's lighter, so that background image is lighter, so that there's more of a contrast with the text color. So I'm going to go, let's see, we have page background. We're asking it to use the page background image. At this point, there's no page background color. So I'm going to add white. We don't want it to be in this little box there where there's a 100. That means it's 100% white. We don't want that. We want, let's say, like 30% white. And then I'm going to hit save. Okay, so that just lightens it up a little bit. I'd probably need to add more in order to really read this text. So I can increase the transparency here. Instead of 30, I can make it like 50 or 60. But then you're kind of getting into, you're not going to be able to see the background at all. So what I would probably do in this case then is go into this. Let's go into this text. And instead of adding like a more white overlay to the entire page, I'm just going to add a white overlay to this background, this text block. So I'm in the text block, and here right now where there's no block background color, we can make this totally white. Okay, so now obviously it's much easier to read. I'm also going to add some padding because I don't want I don't want it to go all the way to the edge there, like that button is all the way to the edge. So let's give it some inside spacing. I'm going to do 30 all around. So that's 30 pixels. Just gives it a little bit of that margin there. One thing, so I'm looking at this page. Okay, and so here's what I'm seeing. I like to see a border around this. I think it just kind of makes it more crisp when you don't have like a really dark and a really light color. Here we have white, which is a very light color, against this like pretty light background. So there's a few things that we can do. We can, number one, we can add a border. We can add a solid border. I'm gonna pop it down to 1. And then you can change this border color. Maybe we want it to be like a blue, like that dark blue, if you want. Number 2, now since we have this white behind the text color, we don't actually need that overlay color over the background image anymore. So where it says page background color, we can remove color. So now it just pops a little bit more. This text block pops a little bit more because there's more of a contrast and because we're like kind of drawing attention to it with this border. You can also, there are just like so many different things that you can do that are going to adjust the way that the final version of this looks. So it's really just a matter of like playing around with it. So I added the white background color, but again, like I'm going to lighten this. So instead of 100% white, I'm going to make it like 80%. So we can still sort of see those color or the flowers behind the text, but the text is easier to read. And then you're basically just going to be doing kind of the same thing throughout the whole page, adding that white background color to these text blocks so that this is easier to read. So as I scroll down, I see that there are a lot of these text blocks that I'll have to add a white background color to or somehow make it pop a little bit more. But I know that I also want to use some of these colors like this blue and pink color as some block background colors. So I'm going to do that next because I don't want to, just because I want to see then what like the contrast looks like and if these text blocks are going to be easier to read. So I want to use these colors, the pinks and blues from this background image, as I want to set those as my colors, my brand colors in Kajabi now. So what we can do, I'm going to pull up this image and then I have this extension. It's called Colorzilla. When you click on that page color picker active, wherever this hovers over, you'll see in that black bar across the top, it tells me exactly what the hex code is that I'm hovering over. So I want some of this pink. Let's see, I want like the brightest pink I can find. It's kind of purpley. Okay, let's do that one. And then if you go into Kajabi, you'll go to settings and then site details. Settings is in the lower left-hand corner, and then site details. And I'm going to scroll down. This is the default color palette that my Kajabi account comes loaded with. So I'm going to pop in here, and that's that like pinky purple color that I got from that image. And I'm just going to do the same thing. I want a blue color. And I can grab one of these green colors for a darker color. Okay, and then I'm going to get one of these, kind of a mauve color, another darker one. You want a mix of light and dark colors so that when you can kind of put them on top of each other and there's going to be enough of a contrast. And then I want a black and a white. Okay. And then this green, I wonder if I can get a slightly lighter green color. That's pretty. Okay, cool. So this is my color palette. These are all just the other default ones, so I won't really use those. I'm going to go up here and remember to hit save. Okay, so now when I go back into my page, like I want to update this. Okay, I'm going to refresh this page. And I want to update this button color. So I'm going to open up this text block because that call to action button is a part of this text block. So we're going to go to button background color, and this seems, well, that's way too light. Maybe that mauvey color, or that's a pretty color. I like that green color. That might be good. And so the other thing, and just with these kind of more like feminine, like softer colors, to me, like the sharp edges of the call to action button are not, like, don't work. So what you can do, the way that you change that, is the border radius. So I'm going to give it like 50, and that just makes it a circle or an oval. It just feels like softer to me. You can also, let's go into the edges around here. And I'm going to go down to background and then border radius, and you can increase this. So that'll round out the edges. Let's make it a even 20. So if I want to apply that same rounding to other elements, I'll remember 20 is easier to remember. Okay. So now I'm going to go through this page and add some, add those background colors to more of these sections. Let's see, this background color, this section, I'm going to add a background color like that pink. Okay, it's obviously much easier to read, and it's still like it ties it together when we transition from this picture to this background color. It looks a lot, it's just better. We're going to need to add a background color to this, this text. Let's just make this one white. And then I would probably add a little bit more padding there. You can also, oh, this one is still white from, that stayed white. Let's add a background color because this is just too busy with the images and this background image. I want to change that. That's too much. So I'm going to add a background color. We have this kind of mauvey, that like purple. Let's call that grape. That grape color. And so you would also want to, as you're going through this page, we're going to be changing the background, the colors for these buttons to that green color. And then we're going to be adding, did I do 40 or 50? Okay, whatever, let's do 40. We're going to be adding that to tie the whole page together. I'm going to use that same pink color that I used further up on the page. And you would need to update these. Okay, down here, I'm going to make this background, the whole background is going to be white, but then I want just the blog to be one of these other colors, like the mauve, or maybe, no. Okay, I also had that dark green, that's like kind of evergreen color, so you could try that for the background, and then the text will automatically change to white. Like once the background color reaches a certain darkness, it'll automatically change to white. And then, but I don't want to be using, let's change that background, that button background color. I might actually make it white, but make the text color that lighter green. Okay, or darker green. Give it a border radius. Okay. So the idea is that we're using the same colors repeatedly throughout the page, but you can kind of flip-flop them in different places and have, here we have white as the background of this text block. Then here we have white as the background of this section, but then the green for the text block. So I'm going to preview this page. And so sometimes when you have a really long page, it's hard for me to kind of get a sense of what colors are being used most frequently. So I have a really handy extension. It's called Go Full Page, which will take a full page screen capture. Actually, I'm going to close myself because it messes up the thing. So I'm going to do full page screen capture. Okay, and it actually doesn't get the background image, which is a little bit annoying. But so what I'm seeing is that I use that pink color once, twice, and then not again. And then I use that mauve color here, and then the green color here. So what I think is that, and I like just kind of a pretty minimal palette. So I'm going to go back in and I'm going to change this green to the mauve color. And I'm going to make one more of these background colors, that kind of pinky color. I'll just keep this up here so I remember what I'm doing. Okay. So instead of green, we're going to change this background to mauve. And you see that it changed, the text automatically changed from white to black when I made that transition. And then, so that was the green that was there. And then I'll make one more of these, that pink color. Let's go down with this one. And then you would want to just go through and make sure that these things match, like the button color and the button radius. So it's this button background color, that green, and then the border radius is 50. So I would go through this page and make sure that those match too. Okay, so I have updated all those button colors and I've made a couple small updates. I'm going to go full page again so I can kind of see what are those primary colors that I'm using. So most of these sections that appear white in the full page are going to actually have that sky background image behind them. But just what I'm looking for here is I see there are a few of these kind of light purple or pink sections, and then we're doing some pops of this mauve color. And just I'm trying to get a sense of like what the overall page is like. I'm using the colors that are featured in this background image, and it ties the whole page together. And then using that background image again ties it together so it feels like it's all part of one piece instead of a page made up of a bunch of unrelated sections.